Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Total PowerPhone. My name is Chris Salafia. I'm the CEO of PowerPhone, and it is my pleasure today to welcome Joe LaFay. Joe is an implementation manager here at PowerPhone, responsible for deploying our emergency call handling software at 911 centers around the country and internationally. So Joe, thanks very much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Chris, for the opportunity to share my adoption journey with you.
It's awesome. So let's just dive right in. I'm curious, these total power phones are really fun because it gives us an opportunity to kind of peel back the curtain and go behind the scenes at some of the interesting and fun things that are happening here at PowerPhone. So let's start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your background.
All right. Well, I am a Rhode Island native and kind of started off way outside of public safety. Went to URI for accounting and was geared up to take over my father's business. He had a small business in Rhode Island. I started working for a fire department and just got the bug. I loved it. I went on to paramedic school, became a medic, and started working in Massachusetts, and then eventually transitioned over to the fire department. And being a firefighter paramedic was hands down the best job I ever had, well, next to PowerPhone, of course. And I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, an on-the-job injury forced me out of the fire service, and it brought me into dispatching, kind of a hidden gem that I never realized was there. I started dispatching for my local police department, which is Uxbridge PD in Mass, part-time, and ended up staying there about 15 years, making my way up to the PSAP director spot. While I was with Uxbridge, I started working for you. You actually hired me on as a part-time instructor. And it was weird. There was a class going on at Uxbridge PD, and that's how I learned about being an instructor. During a break, the director at that point came over, sat with me for a little bit. We chatted. He offered me a position. I said, yeah, let's try that out. And, that started my journey with PowerPhone. And here I am, about 14 years later as an implementation manager, and really, really enjoy what I'm doing.
So during that time, you've seen quite an evolution as we move from the classroom to more as a technology-based company. What does that look like from your side?
I like the way it is now. I was doing for about 10 years, traveling around doing the face-to-face classrooms we used to do, active shooter, protecting law enforcement responder and whatnot. And it gave me a lot of experience teaching dispatchers from every realm, from your civilian dispatchers to your sworn officers to your firefighters, and seeing what their needs are. Everyone's needs were a little bit different. So I really enjoyed that. But now, with the platform that we currently offer with the site license training, I think it offers the dispatchers a lot more. There's a lot more to them and a lot more convenient for them. We still have that personal element with us coming on site as implementation managers and working with them. But I think we're offering them a lot more in a much easier format.
But that's a great point, and one we haven't really talked about yet in any of these total power phones is the advantages of site license training. Historically, especially with budgets the way they are, and post-COVID with turnover and the great resignation generation, as they call it. One of the things I think is a huge advantage of this site license training is it's basically all you can eat for the agency. So no longer do you have to wait for a new hire to maybe make it past their probationary period before you make the investment in their training. Now you can simply just, when you're onboarding, as part of their onboarding, they can start their training because there's no additional expense to the agency. And I think that's a huge win. Are you finding that with your clients that you're bringing on board?
I do. The agency directors and points of contact really like that aspect of it, not only for helping them get their dispatchers trained, but also for the budgeting side of things, because it makes it a lot easier. One of the hidden benefits that I'm now seeing talking to these agencies and putting my director's cap back on is, you're right, you mentioned the resignation generation, and it's tough to get people to stay, and it's tough to get people in the door to try something new. With site license training, there's a huge hidden benefit there because it helps the trainers train these dispatchers, because in the past it was all about repetitiveness and making them sit with you for a long period of time and get them to remember those questions. That was tiring on a trainer. So having this tool that the dispatcher can use takes a lot of weight off them. And the new people coming in, it takes that fear away from, oh my God, I'm not going to know what questions to ask. It's going to take me a long time. It shortens up that learning curve. So those two benefits alone are going to help bring people in, help train them, and help keep them there.
Yeah, because we're all doing the same thing. We're trying to keep that standard of care as level and consistent as we possibly can. So let's switch gears a little bit and move from the training to talk a little bit more about the call handling platform. One of the things that I feel is PowerPhone's special sauce is the people such as yourself and the members, all the members of our implementation team who are responsible for onboarding our clients have all been there, done that. So I know you came from an agency that started using, or probably started with nothing, like most agencies, made the commitment to a protocol-based system. You started with paper, and then you kind of gravitated towards more of a technology solution. So maybe you can spend a couple minutes talking about your experience as a call handler dispatcher, and also as the PSAP director, and some of the challenges that you guys face as part of that process.
Sure. Coming in to the dispatch center from a public safety background was certainly an advantage for me, because I kind of knew the lingo and the jargon. But sitting in that dispatcher chair, regardless of what background you have, it's a whole new ballgame. You got to learn a lot. So I had that learning curve to learn the CAD. I had that learning curve to learn the PowerPhone. We were using the old flip cards at that point. Now, even though I had a paramedic background, it certainly helped with what type of questions, but having a structured questions in front of me for any type of call was a huge advantage. So it took me a little while to get used to that, but I did. Then our agency decided, let's go from flip cards to the full TR integrated with the CAD. And again, Chris, this is well before I was with PowerPhone. I'll be perfectly honest, just like I am with every agency I train and every dispatcher I've ever trained. When the chief said, we're doing this, I was not a fan of it. At that time, we're a smaller agency, but we're doing about 22,000 calls a year. And at that time, we worked one dispatcher on duty at a time. So I worked alone. And I thought that, on top of taking business calls and 911 calls and talking on the radio and dealing with lobby traffic and checking prisoners, this was one more thing I'm not going to have time to do. So I was really against it. I was that thorn in the chief's side, but I kept an open mind with it. So when PowerPhone came to our agency and we did the training, I kept an open mind and went through the training. And then I started my learning curve. And there is a learning curve with this. Just like any new piece of equipment you get in dispatch, whether it's a new radio or a new chair, you have to learn how to use it. Once I went through that learning curve and I adapted TR to my dispatch style, and that's one of the other great things. This is very adaptable from the most seasoned veteran to the earliest rookie. Once I adapted it, I heavily relied on this to get me through multiple calls much more effectively. When I tell dispatchers that, it breaks a lot of ice, and they said, all right, let's give it a shot. I said, just let me show you what it can do. And knock on wood, to date, never had anyone come out of my training saying, yeah, this isn't right. They're like, yeah, I can't wait to use this.
So speak a little bit more about that. I know one of the challenges with anything, and it's not just in public safety, but that adoption of something new and gravitating to change. This is an industry that for many reasons doesn't rush to change. So what were some of those challenges, but I think more so maybe some of the benefits that you realized, longer term?
The challenge, one of the biggest challenges is just it's a new tool to work with. So now not only do you have this tool, you have to figure out, how do I make this work for my workflow? And every agency has their own workflow, so they have to kind of work it in there. But once they do, the tool that you have in front of you no longer have to rely on your back brain to come up with these questions, especially under stressful conditions where you're dealing with a high priority call like a domestic in progress or something with CPR, or you're getting slammed with multiple calls. Working in a single seat dispatch center, this allowed me to triage these calls, rifle through them, release them, go back to the ones I had to, and never lose my place. Everything's right there. So you don't have to remember, on this call, what did I ask? So structure-wise, organization-wise, it definitely helped get those responders there faster. I started getting compliments from our officers and our firefighters on how well prepared not only the callers were, but how well we were preparing the responders to get there. So the benefits are really limitless, and you're going to find what works for your agency and how to use that to your benefit. I found some agencies maybe take a week or two to train with it before they go live. I've had other agencies, when I was up in New York, as they literally left my end user training, they went into the dispatch center and they were live. They were coming right out of class, going live with it.
I love that.
And they love it. I've had agency directors say, yeah, just be aware, this guy, he's my problem child. He's going to be tough to deal with. And after we're all done, the director comes back to me and says, he bought in the biggest and the most that he's asking me about making changes and how we can make it even better. So I've dealt with them all from, really in the back of the class, eyes crossed, not even no eye contact, to yes, teach me. And every one of them has come out of this saying, yeah, this is really going to help us.
Yeah, that's super valuable. I think one of the most overlooked benefits of structured call handling is that updating of responders, that responder safety. Like how critical is that? And the other piece is that consistency, right? I mean, we always say in our part of the PowerPhone sales team will say, a call taker or dispatcher talks to more people in a day than a responder will in a week. So it's that opportunity to provide great service. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about too is historically, it goes back to probably state legislation, and a lot of the focus historically on protocol-based systems has been on the emergency medical dispatch side. But we know that 20% or so of the calls are medicals. The vast majority of calls coming in to an integrated PSAP are police related or multiples. That classic motor vehicle accident. You're going to have law enforcement. You may have rescue. EMS is responding if there's injuries. So maybe talk a little bit about some of the benefits of, it's that whole concept of not just EMD. A structured call handling can apply to any call. Maybe speak a little bit to that if you would.
Yeah, like you said, with EMD, it's really important to help someone through any type of medical situation, and having those structured questions and structured pre-arrival instructions are critical to a better outcome of that patient and the responders. So it makes sense to take that same philosophy and carry it over to your most common calls. You're getting a lot of police calls in. Why not use it for the same purpose? There are those high priority calls that are, high priority, low frequency calls, like those domestics in progress, depending on what area of the country you're in, things like that, where it's nice to have those protocols right in front of you, because again, you're not relying on, oh my God, I haven't had this call in a while. Someone's getting beat up. What do I do? You can now focus right there on all of your questions, getting your responders out. Same thing with fire calls. Most fire calls, luckily we don't get a lot of them, but when you do get that structure fire, we have an excellent structure fire protocol for both someone trapped in the house or reporting it. And as a new dispatcher, structure fire was the scariest call to get as a new dispatcher, because there's so much you have to do, especially if you work alone, getting all your responders out the door. If it's a multi-alarm, getting other towns coming in and still talking to those calls on the phone and updating, there's a lot. So having all of those structured protocols right in front of you takes a big chunk of that worry and kind of apprehension, and I'm afraid of this type of call. It's all right there. And like you were saying, regardless whether it's police, fire, or medical, you're consistently and accurately getting information from the caller and consistently and accurately giving instructions out. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and this from your days as an instructor and obviously as an end user. That whole standard of care is a concept we talk about a lot at PowerPhone. We want to have that standard of care obviously as high as we can, but I would argue that you almost want it as consistent as you can as well. And where agencies get in trouble is when you have you could have all your veterans working days and your newbies working nights, and that you'll have that difference in response or level of service. I think with structured call handling, it levels the playing field. Everybody's kind of singing from the same hymnal, reading from the same book, what have you. And I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to not only helping the callers, which is a huge part of what we do, it's helping those responders prepare for that call, because part of the job, a big part of our job as dispatchers, is making sure that police officer, firefighter, medic goes back to quarters after that call and back to their families at the end of the shift. These protocols are going to help with that concept as well. So we're consistently helping callers and consistently protecting our responders.
Perfect. Well, listen, this has been fantastic. I always like to wrap these up by, what's that one thing that you want to pass on? And you're fortunate now in what you do for PowerPhone from the implementation side, that you get to see kind of best practices across the country. Is there anything you kind of want to share with our viewers, or anything that one thing that you see as an important piece to remember as somebody moves forward?
When you're moving forward and your agency is looking at adopting PowerPhone without structured call handling, you're going to be afraid of it. It's normal to be afraid and apprehensive, but you know what? Go through that learning curve and you're going to get that light. I've seen it 100 times where that light comes on, where you work with your CAD, you see how it integrates. They literally turn around to me and go, now I get it. Okay. So that's the big takeaway I have, is wait for that now I get it moment, because it's going to come. It's going to come.
It's awesome. Well, listen, Joe, thank you again for your time. I know it's the holidays are approaching. You have any trips coming up, or what's coming down the pike for Joe?
Well, for work, I do have some more trips before we break for the holidays, and I've already have my January and February schedules booking up. I do have some nice personal trips coming up. It'll be nice to get the family together, and yeah, we're looking forward to a little downtime with everyone under one roof.
Well, that's excellent. Well, listen, thank you again for your time. This was great, and safe travels, and enjoy the holidays.
Thanks, Chris. You as well.
All right, Joe, great job.